Hey, welcome back to The Dive. Today on the show, we're excited to welcome back Todd Bubba Horwitz from Bubba Trading. We're going to ask him about the unemployment rate, Joe Biden's plan to tax billionaires, the Chinese balloon controversy, oil, gold, and be sure to stick around till the end to hear Bubba's top commodity right now. Hey, Bubba, welcome back to The Dive. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Cassandra, always a pleasure to be with you and see you and have some good conversation.
Okay, so let's start off with some macro. The U.S. economy added 517,000 jobs in January, and the unemployment rate is now 3.4%, a 50-year low. Do you think that the Fed will continue to hike?
First of all, can you get a beeper for me so when I can say what I really think? I call BS on the 517. I think that's a bad number. I think that if you actually looked at the true numbers, which would be on the U6, not the U3, you would see that those jobs are part-time jobs. We've lost over 2 million jobs since last May, full-time jobs. So what we're seeing is layoffs everywhere being refilled with part-time jobs. And so the unemployment rate at 3.5% at 50-year lows is really not accurate because you're not looking at the right information. You're looking at a lot of people that quit looking for work. So at the end of the day, I do call BS on that number, and we are nowhere near solved, and the Fed will continue to hike rates, in my opinion. They're going to go at least another 25 basis points to the next meeting, and then we'll see from there.
There's news that Joe Biden will revive his plan for a tax on billionaires, as well as a tax on share buybacks. Do you think that this will have an impact on the market?
It'll have a disaster effect on the market. Of course, almost any time that he opens his mouth, he has a bad effect on markets. So you want to tax people and prevent them from investing in markets, and you want to start to, try to continue to strip. And who you're really hurting is really the middle class, because you can listen to the nonsense all you want that we're all going to tax the wealthy, supposedly, but somehow that tax always dribbles down to the middle class as well, which is punishment. It hurts companies, it hurts jobs, it hurts everything you could possibly think of if he does that.
Let's talk about the Chinese balloon controversy. After the balloon was shot down by a U.S. fighter jet, the Chinese Defense Ministry said that they reserve the right to use any necessary means in response. What do you think is really happening here between China and the U.S.?
Well, I don't think there's anything. I think it's a bunch of nonsense. Listen, let's face facts. Every major country spies on every other country. This is not new. To me, this was almost a test and maybe even an attempt to make Biden look like he was powerful and that he would shoot down a spy balloon. Do you really think that spy balloon was anything more than a prop, in my opinion? I mean, listen, China could shut down our power grid tomorrow if they wanted to. And of course, we know the deals that have been made through the lobbyists and through a lot of the politicians, that all the money they make, that both China and the U.S. make from each other from payoffs and under the table dealings. So to me, this was nothing more than a stunt and just a bunch of rhetoric.
China's reportedly in discussions with the Saudis about circumventing the U.S. dollar. Do you think that this is a bigger story than the media is making it out to be?
I think they've been talking about this for years. This is not new. This is an old story. And at the end of the day, the U.S. dollar will be the reserve currency until it's not. And, we've tried the petrodollar, and there's all kinds of stuff going on. And at some point, it'll probably change, because I think the real plan going forward throughout the world is to have a one currency system, which would all be digital, which would be a disaster for everybody in the world, especially the United States.
We've seen big oil companies like Exxon and Shell report record earnings. Biden is putting pressure on them to reinvest in production. What are your thoughts on oil stocks right now?
Well, what do you mean reinvest in production? He won't let them produce. That's the problem. That's why they get to make so much money, because they have no cost. They're just simply flipping the oil they get from Saudi Arabia. I think that the company oil is going to go a lot higher. I think when you get to April, May, and, we've had oil's been down quite a bit recently, but I think when you get to April and May, when we get into the real driving season and demand season, don't be surprised when OPEC and Saudi Arabia suddenly have a shortage and they go, oh, we need more money. We can't produce anymore because we need more money. I've lived through this in the 70s when oil went from $9 to $18 and you had to wait in line to get gas. I would predict the exact same events are going to reoccur, and gases and crude oil is going well over $100, and I still think it's probably going to record highs before it's all done.
The government of Ghana announced their Gold for Oil program. This uses gold reserves to support the import of petroleum products. If this trend continues, what do you think the impact will be on the US dollar?
Well, I mean, with the dollar being a reserve currency and the U.S. still being the strongest country in the world and still independent, is relatively independent, I don't think it really has much effect at all. I mean, you're talking about scraps versus, a major powerhouse that's going to take advantage of it or use that. Plus the fact, do they really have enough gold? It's always been my suspicion there's enough gold in the world to cover the amount of paper that's been promised out there. So I don't look at it as nothing but a big zero.
Okay, now let's move on and talk about commodities. Which commodity do you think has the most potential short term?
Oh boy, I think that commodities in general are going to have a big market this year. I think you can start with the grain markets. They're so depressed right now, and the input cost to plant those continues to go higher. I would expect them to explode higher. But I think it's going to be pretty much everywhere. Gold, oil, silver. I think all commodities will be much, much higher throughout the year. I still expect a major meltdown in the stock markets, which would lead also more new money coming into the commodity markets. So, but if I were looking for one thing right now, I would probably step into the grain markets right now, because grains are awfully cheap and compared to what it costs to plant.
What about gold? What's your read on gold's price action right now?
Well, I hated what happened on Friday, obviously. That was a very ugly day and nasty, and we're long gold. I think gold is going to make a new high this year. I think gold is going to have a pretty solid move. And the selling, I think, was overdone, just because it peaked so fast. It got to like 1970 and then fell apart. And I think if you look at it, I think gold is going to be very strong this year, and I expect to see new highs, and I expect the new highs to hold. And I think we're going to be seeing gold continue to rally for an extended period of time here. But there'll be some bumps in the road, but I think that gold is probably seeing its lower levels for quite a while.
Now we have to ask you about earnings season. What stories are you following closely?
Well, I don't follow earnings season because the problem with the earnings season is that companies already know what their earnings are going to be, so they make sure that they try to underpromise. And they're playing with the figures to make sure that when they see the report comes out, that the numbers look better than they are. Earnings season is horrible. Business is horrible. We're in a recession. They won't admit it, but we're in a recession. The country is in turmoil. So again, but you can make the numbers look better, and all of a sudden the investors go, oh, well, these numbers, they beat numbers. Well, they're jumping over a limbo bar that's 1 inch off the ground. They have nothing to buy. No power here. To me, it's all nonsense. And that's the problem with the way that earnings are reported. They can adjust and give different information what they see fit, which then can create some buying opportunities.
Okay, well, that's all we have for you today, Bubba. Could you let our audience know before you leave where they can go to find more from you?
Yeah, they can go to bubbatrading.com and look at my website, or if they have any questions, they can email me direct. I'll answer them. Bubba@bubbatrading.com. Always love to hear from people from the deep dive, because it's one of my favorite shows. So love to be on, and always love to be with you.
Oh, thank you, Bubba. We'll see you next time. I can't wait to hear what you have to have in store for us next.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for watching. We hope you learned something today. And if you'd like to learn a bit more, be sure to stay tuned by hitting that notification bell and subscribing below before you leave us. Bye.